10 years running, Charleston was voted by the readers of Travel and Leisure magazine as the #1 city in the United States. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. As always, I am Bill Olson, your favorite YouTubing Charleston realtor. Today, we're talking all about the Travel and Leisure World Best Rankings and Charleston being the #1 city in the United States for 10 years in a row. Now, what's super significant about this is when a city or anything in their rankings gets 10 consecutive first places, then you become part of their World's Best Hall of Fame. So Charleston, congratulations. We are now a Hall of Fame city. And not only were we #1 in the US, but when we move over to the world rankings, we were number 23 in the entire world, which is a super great accomplishment as well. And Charleston was in some great company with 9 other amazing cities rounding out the top 10, with Charleston at the top. And then from there, we had New Orleans, Santa Fe, Savannah, Honolulu, New York, Chicago, Alexandria, Virginia, San Antonio, and Boston. So of that top 10, would you change anything? Would you add any cities? Would you move anything around? Does Charleston even belong on that list? Before we get into it, let us know down in the comments what your thoughts are and what changes you would make. All right, so now let's talk about how they arrived at this. Now, it is a reader's poll, and it was open from October of 2021. And for the category for cities, they were broken down into some subcategories that they compiled using algorithms and whatnot. And these were sites and landmarks, culture, food, friendliness, shopping, and value. So what we're gonna do in this video is we're just gonna kind of break all of those down, talk about them, let you know a little bit about what Charleston has to offer in each of those, and kind of why I feel that we were deserving of this #1 ranking 10 years in a row. So the first thing on the list is sites and landmarks. With Charleston having such a rich history, it seems like everywhere you turn, there is another site or landmark to see. And unlike other cities on this list, Charleston being much smaller than most of them, a lot of these can be traveled from one to another on foot to see as many of them as you can in one day, whereas some of the bigger cities like Chicago, New York, and Boston, the sites could be a 45-minute drive or an hour drive apart from each other, still within the city. So for us, like when you're downtown, which we call the peninsula, you see here on the map, you could be at Rainbow Row and then you're just a short walk to the market. And from there, you're just a short walk up to a park. And then from there, you're across the street from a historic church or building. So it's very easy to traverse the city on foot. Now, there are areas that are further out if you wanted to go and see the plantations. They're going to be a drive, of course, but right in the downtown area that we're talking about, everything is very centrally located and there's a surprise around every corner. So next up is the culture. Now, a city's culture is very much shaped by its history, which we know Charleston has plenty of. And we can't talk about that history and that culture without talking about the Gullah Geechee people. Now, if you've never heard these words and you're asking if I'm actually speaking English, no, the Gullah or Geechee people are descendants of Africans that were enslaved on the Sea Islands and the rice plantations and the indigo fields along the coast of basically South Carolina and Georgia, a little North Carolina and Florida as well. And they developed their own cuisine, their own language, their own just about everything. And it has just woven itself into what Charleston is and has become, from the food, the music, and the art as well. You always see the sweetgrass baskets, people weaving these sweetgrass baskets either at the market or on the side of the road. And historically, they were a necessity. They were hand-woven baskets from the sweetgrass, from dried sweetgrass that to eat off of, to store food, but they've molded into these immaculate and somewhat expensive works of handmade art. Also with the culture, we have the arts and the events as well, with two big events being Spoleto and the Food and Wine Festival. Both of these bring people from not just around Charleston, but all over the globe converge on Charleston for these. Spoleto is a 17-day and 17-night celebration of the performing arts, from opera, jazz, ballet, theater, everything for 17 days here in Charleston. They even have what's called Piccolo Spoleto, which is before that, and it focuses mainly on local acts. And then the Food and Wine is 5 days at the beginning of March, end of February every year, with just events all over the city, from cooking classes to wine tastings, liquor tastings, dinners. If it has to do with food and wine, it happens there. And then that takes us straight into the next category, which is food. Now, being a huge tourist city, one of the things that comes with that is absolutely incredible food. And just a simple search on the James Beard Foundation's website for Charleston will return 10 winners and 70 semifinalists. Most of the time when people think of really good food, they think of the white tablecloth, expensive meals, but it's not. Here in the South, we love our barbecue. Rodney Scott, a James Beard award-winning chef, best chef in the Southeast, has a restaurant where he just does whole hog barbecue. There's nothing fancy about that, and it is some of the best barbecue you will ever have in your life. If you want to know more about Rodney Scott and you're looking for something to watch on Netflix, which you're probably just scrolling through Netflix for an hour just to watch something for 30 minutes, I highly suggest you check out their series called A Chef's Table Barbecue. They did an entire episode on Rodney Scott and his story from his family restaurant out in the middle of basically nowhere to moving it here to Charleston to becoming a James Beard chef. Super interesting, super cool, and shows a lot of the heart that goes into the cuisine. If you've ever been to Charleston and you've been to his restaurant here, let us know in the comments. And as you know, there's so many different kinds of barbecue sauce. My favorite is mustard. What's yours? Do you like the tomato? Do you like the vinegar? Let us all know. Let's start that barbecue sauce argument down there. I am team mustard. What team are you? And it's not just these award-winning restaurants and chefs that are great. It's basically anywhere you turn in Charleston, you're gonna have an amazing meal, whether it's at my favorite restaurant, Taco Boy, or my wife who's a vegetarian, we like to go to the Neon Tiger, which they serve no meat. It's all vegan, but you would never know because it is actually that good. To grabbing a steak at Hall's Chop House or grabbing some oysters at 167 Raw, you can't go wrong just about anywhere. If you need any suggestions when you're here, just hit me up and I will help you figure that out. Moving on, we get to friendliness. Now, we are in the South and Southern hospitality is alive and well. I do warn you, don't look at the comment section of a lot of my videos because there are some very nasty people on the internet, but those are just what I refer to as keyboard cowboys, and they basically keep to themselves. They're not the people that you're gonna see out and about. I've lived many places in my life, and I have to say Charleston is by far the friendliest. And don't just take my word for it. I know we're talking about Travel and Leisure magazine here, but if we switch pages, no pun intended, and go to Condé Nast, they came out in earlier this year with their list of the friendliest cities in the United States, and Charleston took number 5. And because we're so friendly, we're going to say congratulations to our upstate neighbors of Greenville because you took the number 1 spot. So 2 of the friendliest cities in the entire country happen to be in South Carolina, and I think that speaks volumes. The next category on here is shopping. While we may not have these showstopper of stores like New York and Chicago and these flagship stores, we do have a lot more boutique mom and pop stores. And the main shopping area downtown is around King Street, where you're gonna find those bigger brands like your Louis Vuitton, your Kate Spade, and your Gucci, but they're gonna be brushing shoulders with more locally owned stores and restaurants. Now, it should be noted that if you're here, make sure it is a second Sunday of the month, because they do close down a portion of King Street to all vehicle traffic, where people bring their stuff from the store out into the sidewalk. You can shop on the sidewalk, dine on the sidewalk. There's street performers, and it's just a great time to just wander the streets, not have to worry about getting hit by a car. Even if you're not in the market to buy anything that day, it's just an amazing experience. Now, just a block away from King Street on Market Street, you do get to the Charleston City Market. Now, if you've looked up anything about Charleston, you've probably seen this. It is a 4-block long, mostly open air market with over 300 vendors. It's a great place to go, and there's some food vendors on the inside to just start at one end and just slowly make your way through and check everything out. And you kind of do have to go slow because it does get incredibly crowded in there. So if you've got any sort of claustrophobia, it's probably not the place for you. You can also walk down on the outside, kind of peek in, and then there's stores along the side there. So right there, King Street, Market Street is kind of your main shopping district of downtown. Finally, we come to value. Now, I'm breaking this actually into two. Now, I know for the sake of the magazine, because it is a travel magazine, they were talking about the value of visiting. So we're going to discuss that, and we're also going to discuss the value and affordability of living. A lot of people are moving here or visiting, and I want to make sure it's all covered for you. So the first part we're going to talk about is visiting. And the major component of that is where you're going to stay. Within your budget, you can find most anything here in Charleston. Now, of course, the closer you are into downtown and walkable, the more expensive it's going to be. And because we don't have huge hotels like big cities, we have a lot more boutique hotels and experiences. So those are going to kind of push that cost up. But what's going to make up for that is, like we talked about earlier with the sites and the landmarks, is you could spend a whole day visiting sites and landmarks and touring the history and spend minimal amount of money. You can go online and Google free Charleston walking tours, and you can download a map with all these places to visit without having to spend a penny. So while you may pay a little bit more for the hotel, just know that, if you don't want to spend much more money, you can see the whole city by foot without having to spend that. Whereas, like I said, in New York and Boston and Chicago, you're getting in a cab and you're traversing the city, spending money left and right to see a lot of these things. So that does keep the value of Charleston a little bit more in check than other places. And then when we move on to the cost of living, now we're going to compare this to other parts of the state and the country. So on bestplaces.net, as 100 being the average cost of living in the United States, Charleston falls in at about 111. Now, that's just the city. You get out to the suburbs like Somerville and Goose Creek, it's going to be more affordable. When we look at the state as a whole, from that 100, we're actually at an 88. Compared to the state, Charleston is a fairly expensive place to live. And there are areas that are much higher than that within Charleston, Mount Pleasant, Daniel Island, Sullivan's Island especially. But know that from a whole standpoint, looking at the country, Charleston actually isn't that much more pricey than most other places. Do you still think, after all of that Charleston deserves this #1 spot? Because I do, and I think we deserve it for another 10 years. Let us know in the comments after you know that. Are we still #1, or did we move up in your book to #1? Don't forget to check out these great videos that I've got for you right here, and I'll see you on that next video.